Hi there, I'm Horserer, and welcome back to another episode of Whipped into Shape. Today we will be covering Hawkins, the underground complex. We're going to be starting in the portal room, and right away you can already tell that there's been a new color added. Yellow means that you can hit over something, but something needs to happen in order for you to do it. In this box specifically, there's a little root, branch, intestine thing you have to stand on in order for the hit to be able to happen. So if you look right here at the very right of the hitbox, I kind of go up and down depending on where I am standing on it, and you have to be on top to hit this. But from this angle in particular, that root doesn't exist, so you can't stand on it, and therefore you can't hit over the top box. You can only hit over the sidemost ones. So yellow hits are kind of like a stylish thing, but not really something you should be going for all the time. Hi Nancy. Okay, so the elevator is a really interesting hitbox because it's not yellow. I was debating on whether or not I should make it that. But it depends on the angle that you hit it from. If you were facing the portal, you can hit over it. If you were facing away from the portal, you can't hit over it. And then either side, you can hit over part of it, but not the bits that are like sticking up. But you can hit over like between where everything is. It's really weird. And then of course you can hit over the window. Like no one's surprised there. It's just a window. So, for a lot of rooms in Hawkins, they are very similar to one another. For instance, this control panel, you can hit over the entire thing. If you were Tier 3, you can hit end to end, but I admittedly didn't record that in Tier 3, so just take my word for it. We go over it later in different rooms, but Tier 2 is fine for this one, but Tier 3 will pretty much get you over every, like, panel in the game. This table, you can hit over the whole thing, zero problems. There are a lot of really good loops on indoor maps like this. Of course, heading upstairs, you can hit over the majority of the railing here, but however, if a survivor is to drop onto this little section here on the middle of the screen, kind of, if they duck there, they can dodge it. If they duck on the upper glass part, it doesn't really matter. Right here, if they duck it, you do kind of screw yourself over. You can hit them right on the noggin, and that's what's important. Up here by the generator, you can hit them over the entire railing, you can hit them over the vault even if they duck, but the average survivor who is paying attention will see you coming up and will probably, you know, leave before you get to this point, but it's good to know. The hallway should not give you too much trouble. Pretty much every box is hit overable, as shown here by Steve. We head over to this loop, you can hit over the majority of it, of course, but the things that are, you know, obviously too tall to hit over, can't hit over. But, you know, some hitboxes, you gotta make sure. This little black box on the right, you can hit over it, as demonstrated here, but the big, tall, yellow one, don't worry about that. Can't hit over that. You can hit over the pallet area if the pallet is gone, and this box on the left, I'm not sure why, even though it looks to be, you know, exactly the same height as the other one. Just can't hit over it. It's weird. Now, this loop has two more of those little black boxes you can't hit over, and these three barrels you can hit over. Most of these loops, like, you don't even really want to go for hits like this, but it is good to know what you can and can't hit over regardless, because I will just be going for a whip drag here. Like, no one is going to stop me. I will whip drag, whip max every single day of my life. But it's good to know what you can and can't hit over. Right here, this whole loop, it is very nice. You can either whip drag the whole thing, or you can just hit over the whole thing. There's loads of loops like this on Hawkins, and it's one of the reasons it's one of my more preferred maps if I had to choose. Of course, this goes from every angle. It doesn't matter if you're hitting vertical, horizontal, or every which way. One direction anyway, you're good. This loop is kind of fucked up because you can hit over this, right? Then you can come over. You can hit over this top bit as well, right here. Nice. And then it's just this part that you would think you can hit over, you can't hit over. And that's messed up. Like, I really don't get the rhyme or reason here. These chairs, of course, you can't hit over, red. I'm bringing all these up because there's an identical loop like this that's in a hallway, like 10 steps over to the left here. But of course, you can still whip drag the entire hallway on either side, so it's not too big of a deal. This empty little cage right down the hall, you can hit over the whole thing. No worries. Now we get to the clone over here, where it has pretty much the exact same visual as the previous, but it's much more deceptive. You can remember this one very easily because it's in the middle of the hallway instead of a side. But like this side bit, you can hit it between. You can't hit over the top of it specifically, but if your hitbox drags down long enough, you can hit through it. So that's an interesting one. This little thing in the hallway, you can hit over the side bits, not the top bit. But for the most part, you're just going to whip drag this one. It's not long enough to have to worry about playing it. But, again, you can hit over the whole thing. Now, over by the exit here, you will very rarely need to hit over this when you can just hit around it. Box on top doesn't work, sides do. This one next to the exit, you can hit over everything except for the tall box. Again, these really tall yellow boxes are kind of getting on my nerves at this point, but the barrels are always, you know, on hashtag Team Nemesis, so don't worry about barrels pretty much ever. Barrels are good. Beginning with the first of the rooms in Hawkins, this one has barrels, a cage, and a couple of boxes you can hit over the entire thing of. It's very nice. That little box that's open there, it's pretty much kind of a big pain. For the most part, this box you can't hit over the lid of it, but you can hit over the actual open box of it. This loop here, you can hit over this yellow crate. There is usually a pallet behind it, but we already destroyed it just to prove a point, really. You can hit over that part as well, but any part that's marked by this big metal X, you cannot hit through, which is very convenient, honestly. Because it just tells you, like, hey, no, you can't do this. And this X is on a lot of loops in the rooms you will be seeing later. This panel that we were talking about earlier that I didn't have footage of hitting over at Tier 3 is identical here, and boom, look at that. You can hit over it. This little table, same thing. You can hit over the entire thing, no problems. This is another iteration of the control panel from earlier, except this one has a pallet, so you can't hit over the pallet, but the hitbox is pretty much the exact same for everything else, so no worries with this either. And when you go upstairs in the exact same room, all of the yellow bars can be hit over unless they crouch, and the open segments do not matter if the survivor crouches or not. And this goes both ways, so if you were standing where Nancy is, aiming at Nancy standing where you are, you still hit them. It's just another control console, no problems here. This is another control console you can hit over. No problems here as well. And while it's never going to come up in an actual chase, that table behind that pallet, you can also hit through that between the pallet and the wall here. Like, this is never going to come up in an actual game, but it's fun to know, you know. Wow, look at that. Now, going upstairs again, a common theme by now, I know. These barrels, these railings, they're all good. You can hit over them. You do have to look out, as from a different angle, this can be kind of weird looking, because the little dome elevation thing in the middle that you can stand on as Survivor, it does kind of make the hitbox a little wonkier. So it does affect whether or not a whip will be able to hit, so just be wary of that if you're going for hits. Sometimes it will just be eaten by it. This room upstairs is interesting because while you can hit over everything, technically, unless you're tier 3 and unless you know the survivor doesn't crouch, I would say just, you know, make sure they vault it because there's nothing you can do. This room does have a few things you can hit over, like this black box in this loop, but it's not really a loop you ever want to go for things like that because you can just, you know, whip drag the entire thing with zero repercussions. Boom, look at that. Same for the loop directly next to it. Boom, look at that. And as far as the actual box directly next to that, you can't hit over it. Sorry. The barrels, you're fine, absolutely. But the boxes on top, no. No. Now this, you can kind of hit over it, just not with a whip. Like Steve's toes, they're just a whip proof. I'm sorry, you gotta punch him. Like, look at that. You would think that would hit, right? But no, you can still hit straight up it though. Another room, another console. Who would have thought that you can, in fact, also hit over this one as well? The barrel, too. Wow. Upstairs in the room where we just saw that, these barrels, you can hit over them sometimes, kinda. Again, it's the same thing with that little bump in the middle. It does occasionally eat your whip hitbox. I'm not sure what it does. Like, sometimes it eats a little bit of distance from it, so if you're hitting it 6 meters, what you think is 6 meters, it doesn't work. But then sometimes you're hitting at 6 meters and it does work. So, it's just really inconsistent is the main thing I'm trying to say to you. Now, much like Ramona Flowers, my 7 evil X's are reappearing for this room. You can't hit over the crates in between these here, but you will notice on the sides the evil X's. Maybe they're kind X's because they let you know what you can and can't hit through, but if you go to the side of this, you're going to notice really quick that you can't hit through it. And those X's are kind of representative of that. This box is a nice box. You can hit over this box. Remember that. That's me missing. That's not the hitbox being weird. There you go. Boom. First try. No one saw the previous thing. Don't even worry about it. Now, these are interesting hits to try and go for, because while you can hit them, unlike the previous thing with Steve standing above you, you can hit them with the whip. But the survivor paying attention will usually not get hit by that. Here's another evil X. Don't even try for that. If the X is there, remember, no go. And this works for every X on the map, I promise you. This one from the side, same evil X. Just forget about it. The staircase, however, while you can't hit through the bars, really, you can hit up the staircase, which is also very nice. And then this other open side on the other side, you can hit through that as well. Very cool. And of course, don't try for the bars. This next room has a bunch of loops that are similar to it, but these 3 barrels, the 4th one on top, are kind of what you want to be aiming for. It's not really a room you need to play. You can hit over the barrels and just whip drag the loop. This is one of the rooms with a tube drop in it. You can hit over this thing here. You can't hit through the computer servers. There's another console there that you can, as you guessed it, hit over as well. You cannot actually hit over the opening of the tube. It's red. Don't try for it. Go around it. Punch them. Do something else. It's not gonna work for you. I'm telling you. Look, it's a solid thing. Wow. Now this might sound obvious, but you can hit into the tube. Hi, Nancy. Boom. Now the computer server room on Hawkins is one of the rooms that doesn't always spawn. You can whip drag around this part, but this shorter loop around here with the pallet in the middle of it, you usually just want to eat this. It's not really playable. The loop is too short for you to even try for a whip drag. So you either have to hit a mind game, you know, pop a 180, turn around, hit it and reverse it, or just eat the pallet. And then if the survivor goes up top, you can hit them over this bar, but most of the time you aren't really in distance to go for this. This long room with the pallet on either side does have a bunch of things you can hit over with these loops. You can also go for hits by whip dragging it around the corners. But it is also another room that does not always spawn on Hawkins. There are a few that swap themselves out depending on which iteration of the map you get, even though they're all still labeled as Hawkins, dissimilar to like Badham 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. You can hit over pretty much this entire thing, but the top of that open crate there is a full-on blocker. It essentially goes to the sky for Nemesis. And you can hit over the barrels, you can hit over every other crate, but this specific crate here, that is the enemy. That is the enemy. Do not listen to his wiles, just because he looks like he can be hit over. It is a solid wall. Just don't go for that. Of course, most of the time you just want to whip drag around loops, but this is something that you can kind of show off with. There's the hitbox of that box. That's me missing, actually, but this is the one where I actually go for it and I hit it because I don't aim for the lid. Boom. This thing in the middle of the 2 pallet room, you can hit over the entire thing, no worries. Now, back to the other loop. With a forklift on one side, you can hit over the barrels, you can hit over this long thing. Mainly, most of these you have to be in tier 3 for. Can't hit over this tall box. You can hit over this entire forklift's, like, lane. You can hit over these barrels, you can hit over the forklift thing there, and then you can hit over the back of the forklift, too. How fun. I guess we can really say that lifts our spirits to know that we could get that hit, huh? No, it's okay. I'll wait. You can laugh. It's okay. Alright, let's go upstairs. This window, you can hit over it. You can completely ignore the glass, the entire thing, you're good. Now this next side room with the computers, they don't block anything. You're also good. This is a terrible room to be in as a survivor. Next one, this room with the rats shaking and squeaking. You can hit over the cage, and you can hit over the cage through the window. You're completely good up here, no worries. Now, this next room with the empty cages, you can hit over the entire thing. Just be wary of angles because, you know, you can occasionally hit a weird thing and it won't do anything. But for the most part, you're good here too. This entire table and the chairs. With tier 3, you can hit over it lengthwise, but if you're tier 2, you're going to have to go with whip drags or just trying to hit over the horizontal side. And that is pretty much every single loop in Hawkins. I'm going to be doing another one of these. Don't know which one yet, but it'll be out when it's out. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to, do all the YouTube stuff. Like, comment, subscribe. Hit the bell if you want to, catch myself really quick. I stream on Twitch if you want to see me play Nemesis. Hope you have a lovely day, and goodbye.